Hello! England have made a triumphant start to the 2016 summer of cricket as James Anderson obliterated a Sri Lankan batting lineup that looked fragile on paper before the game began, particularly when that paper had their recent test records printed on it, and they looked even more fragile on actual grass once the game had begun. Sri Lanka played Anderson and Broad's home conditions mastery with the confidence and skill of a watermelon playing a piano concerto, and with similar results, in that people are understandably wary of buying tickets to next week's Watermelon Plays Schubert recital, particularly given that it often rains at the venue. And heading into that second test in Durham, Sri Lanka's batting lineup still looks fragile, albeit it looks fragile in the same way that a delicate china vase looks fragile after it has been sat on by a rhinoceros. IPL news now, and we are at the business end of the tournament. Actually, the tournament has quite a lot of business end. It's all business end, but we're at the more business. We're at the sporting business end. It's business. It's anyway. The point is, we are reaching the end of the IPL, and the Royal Challengers Bangalore have bounced back from a ropey start to make the final on the back of some stellar performances by Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers in particular. You do kind of get the feeling that there is almost nothing de Villiers and Kohli cannot do on the T20 field at the moment. If you put them on the Titanic, I'm not saying they would stop the boat from sinking, but I am saying they would probably put on 160 off 55 balls to keep everyone entertained whilst it was going down. And you can't give batsmen any greater praise than that. And elsewhere in cricket, some of the biggest names of 21st century cricket are competing together. Butler, Stokes, Kimber are all playing for Guernsey in Division 5 of the World Cricket League. As we record, Vanuatu are playing Nigeria, a rivalry as old as time itself, and it's Tanzania against Oman. I don't know about you, but the mere fact that those games are taking place makes me glad to be alive. Thank you, cricket.
So, Doc, Sri Lanka became the 12th touring team to England to begin their test series in England with the bat while being bowled out for under 100, and the 9th of those 12 to lose their test. 2 draws and 1 win, if I remember correctly, which I do because I won that game. Oval, 1882.
Don't you mean Australia won that game?
Not really, Doc, no. I mean, I won that game. 7 for 46, 7 for 44, won by 7 runs, so it's fair to say I had a fairly significant role to play in that win. Team game, of course, but a team game that I won.
So, why are you telling us this now?
Well, Doc, there's a very valuable lesson to be learned.
Which is what?
Do not be bowled out for under 100 in your first test innings of a tour to England, unless you have me in the team.
Take that on board, Sri Lanka. Wise words.
Last week I said, slightly in jest, that Sri Lanka's batting lineup was bottom worst in Test cricket. They didn't think it was in jest, they thought it was a premonition, perhaps.
Or maybe tactical advice.
Yeah.
Soften up England from the first test and then hit back.
They were so bad they failed to outscore Johnny Bairstow in either of their completed innings, and that is, how would you phrase it in modern cricket?
Well, suboptimal from Sri Lanka's point of view. I mean, it's less suboptimal than it would have been earlier in Johnny Bairstow's career when he wasn't scoring so many runs. At least he did play a big and very good innings, but still not good from Sri Lanka. Very inexperienced batting lineup in tough conditions. In the modern game of cricket, where these kind of hyper collapses seem to happen alarmingly regularly to all teams, I guess that kind of batting collapse with that kind of batting lineup, kind of inevitable. England, though, hit by injury. Ben Stokes out, Chris Woakes in. Woakes just took 9 for 36 for Warwickshire against Durham, and from Durham's point of view, I guess these kind of batting collapses are inevitable when you put a team like that in English conditions. Also in the county game, Leicestershire, 43 all out against Worcestershire with a top 6, 5 out of 6 of whom are aged 31 or over with at least 120 first-class games. But if you put a batting lineup like that in early season English conditions, these kind of collapses are absolutely inevitable, so nothing could have been done. Good bowling, to be fair.
So, Doc, IPL, Royal Challengers Bangalore versus someone else from somewhere else in the final. I don't know about you, but I reckon the key tactic for the someone else 11 is going to be bowl as little as possible to Kohli and de Villiers.
What, you mean call in sick? Well, personally, I can't believe the IPL is nearly over. I mean, the American Major League Baseball season began at about the same time, and that's barely even started.
Well, a 162-game IPL season. It's good to have a dream.
If you own a franchise.
The IPL is obviously supposed to be about many different things and cheerleaders, but this particular season has been mostly about Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers. Virat Kohli's making all the runs. So far, I think he's scored 3,000 IPL runs. Well, that was last game, I don't know. I haven't checked for a little while. And AB de Villiers, he's a bit more like you. He's a bit flashy, and he's not consistent, but when he does something, it's so spectacular and so much swag and charisma.
Thanks, Jared. Yes. No, I've always considered myself to be basically the human equivalent of AB de Villiers.
Yeah. Now, the important thing, though, is who would you choose? Who do you want? It can be batting for your life. It can be batting for an afternoon. It can be batting with you. But you can only choose one.
Right. Well, just
Simon or Garfunkel?
Oh, don't make me choose. I mean, it's obviously who I'd choose out of that one.
Beavis and Butthead.
Right. Are those their code names with RCB Security, I think, isn't it?
Sambit and Bal.
Don't make me choose. So just is purely judging them on cricket or on, like, personality? You know, who I'd most like to row across the Atlantic with in a two-man boat for charity?
That's up to you.
Or
but you can only pick one. That's the important thing.
If there's a space shuttle with that's only got enough oxygen left for two, who do I leave on the moon?
Yes.
Tough call. Tough call. Oh, can I get back to you on that in 15 years, having judged the entirety of their careers objectively?
You fail as a cricket fan.
Let me stop you right there, Jared. That's not the only T20 that's happening in the world, the IPL. The
Hong Kong Blitz?
That may be happening. The NatWest T20 Blast has begun here in England with a bang. Well, a small bang. A discernible noise if you have some extremely high-tech listening equipment.
Has it really started?
Espionage level. It has allegedly started.
Okay.
There's some scorecards and stuff, and there's a game I'm going to tomorrow. So I've heard it has definitely started.
Oh, that's
the small bang.
Quaint.
Did you know? Interestingly, they were going to call it the small bang when it was first launched instead of the blast, but they named it the blast after the reaction of English traditionalists when they realised what it was going to do to their county championship games through the months of high summer. The blast. That's a fact.
Andy, do you have your board of stats? I need 7 stats on the England-Sri Lanka match as quickly as possible.
Start the clock. England were the first team to win a test after scoring less than 300 runs in the match since New Zealand did so in back-to-back tests against India in 2002. That's 570 test matches ago. Jimmy Anderson became the first bowler to take 5 or more for less than 30 in both innings of a test since Tony Locke against the West Indies at the Oval in 1957. Sri Lanka, the first team to be bowled out for under 120 twice in a test in England since the hapless New Zealanders of 1958. And the first team anywhere since Zimbabwe against New Zealand in 2005. Also, Sri Lanka, the first touring team to begin their summer tour of England by being all out for under 100 since Zimbabwe in 2000, before that New Zealand in 1973. Sri Lanka's numbers 7 to 11 scored 14 runs in the test. That's the equal third worst ever in a completed test by numbers 7 to 11 from one team, behind the 13 runs anti-amassed by the West Indies tail when being unceremoniously horsed by Australia in the first test in Trinidad in 1999, and the 7 that the West Indies stockpiled in that game at the Oval in 1957, although they were one player down due to injury. England, the third team ever to win a test despite numbers 3 and 4 scoring 0 runs in the match. Australia versus Pakistan in Rawalpindi, 98 to 99. That was Langer and Mark Waugh. England against the West Indies at Lords, again in 57. Graveney and May, which is great news for Nick Compton, who got one of those ducks, because Langer, Waugh, Graveney and May all scored at least 11 test hundreds and averaged over 40, so it looks like Compton has booked his place in the team for the next 5 years at least. And one final obscure stat, Moeen Ali became the 30th bowler in test match history to take a wicket in his only over of a test, and the first ever to do it against Sri Lanka. Stop the clock!